Why didn't Gollum age when Bilbo took the One Ring? Let's take a look. Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to Deep Geek. On this channel we cover The Lord of the Rings, A Song of Ice and Fire and other great fantasy books and TV shows like The Witcher. Welcome. This is actually one of the questions I get asked most on my live streams on my other channel, IDG Live, so I thought I'd answer it here. And the starting point for this, for many, is an observation that although Bilbo doesn't noticeably age while he is in possession of the ring, a fact Gandalf grows increasingly concerned about, when he gives up the ring, he does age quickly. So why doesn't the same happen to Gollum? He, like Bilbo, is stretched like butter scraped over too much bread while he has the ring, but afterwards, when he doesn't have the ring, he seems to remain incredibly active, like he hasn't aged. Well, the first part of the answer here is that the films show Bilbo as having aged significantly by the time Frodo and co make it to Rivendell, and in not much time. The films, remember, significantly compressed the 17 years time gap between Frodo inheriting the ring and him leaving the Shire with it. Bilbo's hair has gone white, he appears frail and, well, old. The clear implication is that not having the ring meant that all that aging he didn't do earlier had finally caught up with him in a rush. That's actually not what seems to be the case in the books, however. We don't get much of a physical description of him in Rivendell at that point, but Frodo certainly doesn't seem to think that Bilbo is now hugely changed in appearance or anything like that. Bilbo has certainly slowed down. When we first encounter him again, he is having a nap, for example, but he's able to play an active role in the Council of Elrond and more. This is 17 years later, remember. It feels like he's just been aging normally in that time. Still, that doesn't answer the Gollum question, because by the time of The Lord of the Rings, Gollum had been without the ring for nearly 80 years. Bilbo seemingly aged a little without the ring, but Gollum did not. Why? Part of the answer is clearly how long they each had the ring. Bilbo had it for about 60 years, using it occasionally to hide from the Sackville Bagginses. Gollum had it for nearly 500 years, and though he didn't wear it all that much towards the end, he lived in the dark, so the need to be invisible was limited at best, he did use it, and it clearly gained control over him. This is obviously a vicious cycle. The longer Gollum had the ring, the stronger its hold over him was, which made him focus on it more, which increased its hold over him. And unlike Bilbo, who was always a good person, Gollum, as Smeagol, wasn't. He gained the ring in the first case through murder, and did not willingly give it up, whatever Bilbo may have originally claimed. Actually, Gandalf thinks that was quite an important point, compared to Bilbo, who did give up the ring. Gandalf says this to Frodo. Of course, he possessed the ring for many years, and used it, so it might take a long while for the influence to wear off, before it was safe for him to see it again, for instance. Otherwise, he might live on for years, quite happily, just stop as he was when he parted with it. For he gave it up in the end, of his own accord, an important point. No, I was not troubled about dear Bilbo any more, once he had let the thing go. It is for you that I feel responsible. Bilbo gave the ring up, figuratively and literally relinquishing his bond to the ring. The ring's influence would linger for a while, in him wanting to see it again and in extending his life. He's 128 years old when the main action of The Lord of the Rings takes place, but it would fade. This is in contrast to Gollum, who had fallen much more deeply under the influence of the ring for much longer and had not willingly given up the ring. The only thing keeping him going was his desire for the ring. That influence would not wear off quickly at all. We should acknowledge at this point that although we are talking about how Gollum was so much more affected by the ring than Bilbo, in the grand scheme of things, he was actually extraordinarily resistant to its power. Gandalf again tells Frodo that even Gollum was not wholly ruined. He had proved tougher than even one of the wise would have guessed, as a hobbit might. There was a little corner of his mind that was still his own, and light came through it, as though through a chink in the dark, light out of the past. Certainly he had never faded. He is thin and tough still. So the risk was that Gollum might have faded, to become wraith-like, presumably, having had the ring for so long. It was his hobbity toughness that prevented that and kept him as ageless and active as ever. So that's why Gollum didn't age after losing the ring. He had possessed it for so long the ring still had a hold of him, his natural hobbit toughness had kept him from fading, and also because the films gave a slightly misleading impression of how dramatically Bilbo had aged after giving up the ring. But there is another layer here. If the power of the ring was what kept Gollum going, what would happen when the ring was destroyed? We obviously don't get to see that with Gollum because he dies at the same point the ring is destroyed, but we know that when the ring had gone, all that which had been built or sustained by its power was also destroyed. The rings of power lost their power, the Tower of Barad-dûr collapsed, and so on. Gollum is, it has to be said, very clear in his mind what would happen to him when the ring was destroyed. He says, "When Precious goes, we'll die. Yes, die into the dust." And Bilbo? Well, if there was a small change in him those 17 years from passing the ring on to Frodo and Frodo meeting him again in Rivendell, there is a huge difference when the hobbits return to Rivendell less than a year later. We're told that Bilbo looked very old, but peaceful and sleepy. And Tolkien gives us a rather sweet description of how the four hobbits would sit with him and tell him of their adventures, but Bilbo would fall asleep, and they would let him sleep, and pick up their story another time, until he fell asleep again. 2 years later, as they prepare to board the White Ship to head west, he appears even older and even more sleepy. What happened to cause that change? The destruction of the One Ring. If Gollum had somehow survived the end of the story in some way, he surely would have been proven right. It would have been the death of him too. Gollum lived on without the ring because of the power of the ring, and the power it had over him. He never willingly gave it up. It is only fitting that his desire for that ring brought about his destruction, and its. If you'd like to see more Lord of the Rings videos, please click on the link on the left of your screen. Or if you'd like to support this channel, thank you. There's a link to my Patreon page on the right of your screen. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.